Good morning, ATS. How's everybody doing? Fantastic. Well, welcome to day 2. I'm very excited to be here. We're going to talk a lot today about cloud. Who's heard of this thing called cloud? Anybody? Show of hands. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I was reminiscing after the AI session yesterday, kind of about where AI is in the life cycle versus where cloud was back in 2010, and it was like, to have this session with cloud completely mature, right? Gartner estimates just in the public cloud space alone, it's over 200 billion in annual revenue with a CAGR of about 20% annually, right? So remembering back in the early cloud days where everyone was like, what is this cloud thing, and how do we make money off of it? That's what we're really going to be talking about today. And so I have a panel of experts across Arrow's vast ecosystem within our cloud portfolio, and we'll have everyone introduce themselves. My role within Arrow is really, number one, cloud, but it's also around our emerging technology solutions and looking at our entire portfolio and really building an ecosystem that supports our partners monetizing cloud. And so that's providers who have been in cloud for, since 2010. That includes some of the new emerging technologies that are coming out of Silicon Valley. And so within my emerging technology group team, ETG team, we're doing a lot to really kind of vet out solutions that add value to our cloud portfolio. So we'll go down the line. I just wanted to introduce our panel. So why don't you introduce yourself and kind of let everyone know what you hope to get out of today.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. So my name is Kyle Green. I'm responsible for our hybrid cloud and hyperconverged business at VMware for the Americas Partner Organization. So what I'd like to challenge you with today is to think about cloud more of an operating model than a destination. And in order to help your customers achieve that, I think VMware is well positioned to kind of help customers think about, hey, any app, any device, any cloud. How do we help them implement a cloud model that includes multiple public clouds, their own private cloud, the SaaS clouds, the IoT clouds? So that's what I'd like to play it in your mind and hope that by the end of the discussion, you'll help have some ideas to take back to your customer base.
Great.
Thanks, Kyle. My name is Derek Mitchell. I am the global guy for Arrow. For Red Hat, and I think what I want you to get out of today is primarily, one, we're the new kids on the block, right? So an introduction to Red Hat and what we can provide to you guys from a cloud perspective, but also a partner ecosystem perspective. So that's kind of my the takeaway I want you guys to have today, and thanks for having me here, and looking forward to talking to you.
And I'm Clay Davis at IBM. I'm a data and AI seller and data and AI leader for North America, working very closely with Arrow. And I got my new friend here over at Red Hat. We spent a couple dollars on them recently.
There's been some news about that, I think.
Yeah. And I guess one thing I would leave you with here is to think of AI as not magic.
My name is David Thompson. I am Arrow's Global Account Director from Microsoft's One Commercial Partner Group. I'm kind of a last-minute fill-in for my boss, Tatiana Ospina.
We called an audible.
Calling an audible. So I'm like the substitute teacher that nobody asked for, but everyone kind of likes because no one's going to get in trouble, and we're going to probably watch a movie.
We're glad you're here.
So happy to be here. We had a phenomenal year with Arrow this year with strong triple-digit cloud growth. Arrow, many of you may know, won the Indirect Provider Partner of the Year award for Microsoft. We look forward to continuing that momentum as we go into the next year, working with many of you here in this audience.
My name is Matthew O'Keefe. I'm a corporate technologist at Oracle. So what I do most days is kind of work with a VP and C-level at our customer to figure out how to use Oracle's technology to transform their business. I think what I'd like to get out to today is there's a lot of technologies that we're talking about, AI, data management, cloud. So how do we really make something happen with the customers in terms of transforming what they're doing? Because the technology is there to make it happen. How do we do that as direct technology providers? How do we do it working through great partners and distribution like Arrow? So that's it.
Great. Let's give a big welcome to our panel. So as I mentioned, compared to where we were in 2010 versus where we are in 2019, cloud is everywhere, right? And I think one of the things that, as I talk to partners, they really kind of want to just peel back the onion and figure out how they can monetize the cloud trend, right? And it's much more than just infrastructure as a service anymore, right? You have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. And as I was kind of reflecting, what does that mean? It means there's a lot of complexity, right, across the cloud landscape. And, the old adage is where there's mystery, there's margin, right? And so what customers are really looking for is a trusted agnostic partner who can really boil down a cloud strategy and give them tangible steps to leverage these various forms of ultimately application delivery. And so Arrow, our strategy, as I mentioned, is we're kind of converging our emerging group and our cloud group, is to make that process simple for our partners, right? So what we're doing, and Adam is on my team with his solution architects and technical talent, is really vetting out a lot of these ecosystems and making sure that they're complementary ecosystem technologies, and then leveraging our portal, our online portal, which is ArrowSphere, really kind of boiling down the ecosystem and making it very simple for our partners to understand, to manage, to provision, and ultimately to help them bill within their cloud ecosystem to drive substantial and meaningful revenue. And so with that, we then have capabilities to really deliver services around the value. And so what I hope to get out of today with our panel is really tangible, tactical things that we can all go back into the field, next week and go execute on. So with that, let's start with the entire panel and kick off. We'll just kind of go down the line. Simple question: how do partners make money in the cloud these days? And what do you see as kind of the emerging growth areas that can really get partners inside that value chain of cloud?
So, Sean, from our standpoint, from a VMware kind of point of view, a lot of it is around the application or the workload management itself, right? Trying to understand the characteristics, the requirements, the performance, et cetera, that these applications need, and preparing for those applications that are rapidly coming down the pipe at our customers, trying to help them understand where to put them, why to put them there, right? The destination of where those applications should live is really where we believe our partners have a great opportunity to get to that strategic level with the customers. Yes, there's always the sale of the hardware and the software that comes along with it and the services to deploy, but it's really that ongoing data management and adjusting to the characteristics of the applications where we see partners being able to get really deep with our customer base.
Fantastic.
Thanks. So in order to kind of determine, the simple answer is how partners make money is to give the customers what they want, right?
Right.
Satisfy customer requirements. But Red Hat being new here, there's also a second part to that. Why would partners even want to consider working with Red Hat in this space? So I'll take the first part, the customer-centric part first.
Agreed.
So what customers, most customers, if not all, are pursuing a multi-cloud strategy. And what they want is a common operating environment across those clouds, right? So what that means, quite simply, is Linux, containers, and Kubernetes, right? Common operating platform. So let's think of a customer that leverages AWS for application X. And by the way, the reason that they're going multi-cloud is primarily because, quite simply, some clouds do some things better than the other clouds, right? So taking the AWS example, you have a business need, you use AWS. Your common operating environment for your developers and your ops folks is Amazon Linux, right? And that's great. Now, just say a new business requirement comes up and you want to go to Google, right? Now your common operating environment for both your application developers as well as your operators is Google Linux. Now, we know that only 20% of workloads are in the cloud, right? So there's still stuff on-prem.
Absolutely.
So what do you do on-prem? Do you bring Google Anthos on-prem as well as AWS Outposts? It's not really practical for a lot of customers, right? So they say we want that common operating environment, and what Red Hat OpenShift provides is that common operating environment across clouds. And quite frankly, I'm going to call out a partner here. I was talking to 6E Technologies yesterday, and they're making a killing doing this, right? And the good news is, and I'm a glass half full guy, I guess, is that there's a dearth of OpenShift talent out there, right? So they're struggling to keep up with demand, right? So if you can provide that common operating environment, I think we'll be very successful.
That's great.
But and I apologize for the long-winded answer. It's still, being a new kid on the block, why would you want to work with Red Hat? So Red Hat is an enterprise software company, and we have an open source development model, right? So we're deeply integrated in the open source community. So that's in our DNA. So quite often, Red Hatters would say, what's our purpose, right? I have a colleague that states pretty eloquently. He's like, yeah, we, give away software for free because that's the open source model. But sometimes we forget they're capitalists, right? So one of the things that Red Hatters wonders, what's our impact on society itself? So IDC did a study, it's fairly recent, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. What's the impact of applications running on RHEL, right? So the workloads on RHEL touch $10 trillion globally, right? It's about 5% of the worldwide economy. So if you dig a little deeper, our partners, right, you guys, this year, 2019, $82 billion in revenue projected. Now, not a lot considering the company on this stage. However, for every dollar Red Hat makes, our partners make $21.74. So it's 22x, right? That's pretty impressive, right? But again, free software company, give away software for free. What's our purpose? It's about 900,000 jobs tied to that. Now, as you project that forward, 2023, from 2019 to 2023, there's a compound annual growth of 11%, right? So 2023, our partners are projected to make $119 billion, right? And there's an additional 236,000 jobs created, right? So when you get Red Hat and you work with them in the cloud, you get that entire ecosystem. And just give you an example, our Microsoft colleagues, SQL on RHEL has set all kind of benchmark records, right? So that, so when partners are working with Red Hat, you don't have to worry about, is my ISV supported? Is my OEM supported? Will my GSI not understand who Red Hat is? Will they not have expertise there? So that's kind of, so when you work with us, you get that entire ecosystem. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make.
Great, thank you.
And I'll build on what Derek was saying around having that common infrastructure layer, the common layer across no matter where you are from a hybrid cloud standpoint. So if you're on-prem, if you're on a public cloud, if you're on your private cloud, having that common layer to be able to sift between them is a key differentiator. And so no matter where the workload needs to be, but I think at the heart of it is data. Like why do you need infrastructure? Is to host data and to host applications, right? And so having the ability to cross, right, the on-prem, the private cloud and the public cloud, and being able to go in and have a conversation with the client and understand their needs from a regulatory standpoint, from a what data they need, what data they don't need, and optimizing that across those three areas, and being able to provide that single layer, kind of orchestration layer, is really key. So if you dive into it from that perspective, I think that you can become a trusted advisor for your clients, and not just have one thought of, okay, everything needs to go cloud, or what, cloud it's too much, you need to stay on-prem. But just having that open mindset, I think is really key.
Yeah, I think from a Microsoft perspective, we do a lot of work on profitability, and we see this profitability ladder that you can climb up. And what we see that successful partners are, wrapping their own value-added services around our services and getting them to the end customer. And as they go up that profitability ladder, obviously the margins get richer and richer as you go up. So for example, if you're doing project services, migrations, assessments, proof of concepts, we see that those partners are garnering about 35% margins. If you're doing managed services, support, security, whatever it may be, we see them doing about 45% margins. And then IP, like repeatable IoT solutions, building applications, vertical and industry specific solutions, we see that those partners are garnering about 65% margins. Now, this is easier said than done.
Right.
And so that's the, making that happen is the difficult part. One of the cool things that we're doing with the the Arrow Cloud sales team is we're building a portfolio of project managed IP services that you partners in the room here can then leverage, take to your end customer to enrich the margins that you see. In addition to that, Microsoft, in conjunction with Arrow, we provide a lot of different services that you can monetize in the cloud. AI services, IoT, there's data and analytics. We've obviously got our modern workplace solutions, and then we've got a whole suite of business application solutions, sales, marketing, operations, finance, that you can leverage to monetize and then build your own value-added services around to take to your customers.
Great.
Yeah, just kind of building on what David said, similarly at Oracle, we see kind of this tiering of the sort of investment assessments and advising as sort of a first tier. Next is managed service provider leveraging Oracle Cloud as well as other clouds, and then custom solutions based on developing your own IP or software based on a specific application or use case. So I think that some of the other panelists talked about a common operating platform. I think that's a ways off, if not something that's probably not going to happen in the sense of dominating 80% of the industry. What I'm seeing more of is a multi-cloud kind of environment, where each of the particular cloud providers, Microsoft, Oracle, Google, et cetera, are kind of optimizing their own clouds. But what we're starting to do is get better at integrating our efforts. Microsoft and Oracle announced a partnership about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, whereby essentially we provide integrated networking, identity, and pricing and sort of product delivery. And so the bottom line is when you want to use, for example, Microsoft applications on an Oracle database, you can do that in a very straightforward, repeatable way. So I think bottom line is figure out what your customers need, and then a repeatable use case that you can execute against.
Great, thank you. I mean, to me, it seems not dissimilar to the on-prem environments that we were used to, right? With the variance of applications, the different hardware configurations, the infinite amount of variables, and end users really needing trusted advisor partners to help them navigate those waters and figure out where the best platforms were. And it seems like that's not a dissimilar trend to what we're seeing in some of the cloud space as it continues to emerge. And finding that area in the value chain, I think, is really what's going to differentiate and to your point, David, lead to healthy margins within the cloud as well, where the on-prem margins are kind of decreasing, right? How do you catch the upward trajectory in some of the cloud margins? So thanks, everybody. You mentioned hybrid cloud and then also multi-cloud, and so I want to get deeper onto both of those topics so we can give a little more definition about what those mean. What should partners know about hybrid cloud? And Derek, let's start with you.
Okay, so hybrid cloud. I mean, I first heard this discussion, although I didn't know it was hybrid cloud at the time. I don't think it was officially a term back in 2013-ish, right? It was a lively debate at VMworld between Pat Gelsinger and Mark Andreessen, right? And Mark Andreessen was talking about 100% of the startups that he funds, they have no infrastructure other than their MacBooks, right? Everything else is public cloud, right? And of course, Gelsinger, VMware with a very robust private cloud solution, well, our customers are telling us we need private cloud, and here's why. So it's the classic, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So Andreessen's hammer was public cloud, Pat's was the private cloud. So fast forward to today, right? There's a $1.2 trillion market for hybrid cloud, right? That's about $100 billion for component tech, another $150 billion for the infrastructure, $350 billion for cloud software, and then there's another $550 billion or so for services, right? So it's hardware, software, and services, right? Music to the folks in this room's ears, I hope. If you look at that breakdown, by the way, this is a study of IBM and IDC, look at that breakdown, 92% of them have some sort of hybrid cloud or will. 58% or so have multi-cloud. So I'm going to disagree with my colleague down here in the Oracle that multi-cloud is a real thing, and we have customers that are doing it now with a common operating environment. So it's not far off; it's actually in existence. But the real key is that 50% of them by 2023 will have what you call a write once, run anywhere solution. That's a common operating environment, right? That's what OpenShift provides, and that's kind of what we see from a hybrid cloud perspective.
Great. Kyle, can you give us a little context of VMware?
So a little VMware kind of perspective, maybe a little bit different. So we see hybrid cloud as really the strategy that our customers are taking, right? They're not sure which application they're going to need to put where. They may acquire somebody who has an app already in a public cloud. Maybe it's in their acquisition's private cloud. So multi-cloud and private cloud, to me, kind of go back and forth together. So our strategy is to say, look, if you're used to managing your workloads, a VMware workload, which is where we're running, our customers are typically running 85% of that market share, their critical workloads running in VMware, whether they're old apps, new apps, or going to build their new apps, containerized apps, and use VMware as the workload management there. They're used to those tools. They can do that in their private environment, in their private cloud, and build this cloud-like model. We've taken the strategy to take that same infrastructure and run it in the public clouds. So run it in Microsoft. And that's a difference of connecting to a public cloud versus running the same VMware operating tool, the platform, we call Cloud Foundation, right? That sits inside of Microsoft, it sits inside AWS, it sits inside Google, it sits inside SoftLayer. You can now truly move those workloads with the same tools, the same people, the same processes, and move applications back and forth today and put those workloads where they need to sit. So we see hybrid cloud and multi-cloud as really what our customers want to be ready for, whether they're using it all today or not. It's the insurance policy, and we want to give them the tools to do that.
Great, thank you. And Matthew, love to hear the Oracle perspective as well.
Sure. So I think, the issue with the common, just very quickly, the common operating platform, it certainly is what's driving Kubernetes. The vision is that you have a common place to run containers, a common way to message between them to basically build software in that environment. And I think they're making progress. Red Hat is kind of committed to OpenShift, I think, which is fine. But the bottom line is, when you look at hardcore enterprise applications, there's a lot of infrastructure you need, a lot of tools you need, and a lot of hard problems you have to solve. And so the reason you have this bifurcation where there's interest in the new stuff, it is making some traction, but we live essentially in kind of a partition. There is no common, something that works across everything. And frankly, I don't know if we'll ever reach that. We have containers now. You're seeing container support being integrated into everybody's cloud and platform. That's taking things quite a long way. So for you, I just stay flexible. As for your ecosystem at Arrow, my view is it's still kind of playing out. It's going to be complex. It's going to be, I can't remember what your quote was there, Sean, but this complexity or mystery.
Where there's mystery, there's margin.
Yeah. So, be shrewd. Be kind of whatever the Missouri, show me. You want to see it actually implemented. Make sure it works. Make sure it's repeatable. And then that's where you start to make the right investments.
Great. So moving on, and I think a little similarly, we hear a lot about multi-cloud, and some of the numbers that I've pulled from Gartner and Forrester and some of the analysts are 85% of enterprises have a multi-cloud strategy today. And I think that includes infrastructure as a service. It definitely includes SaaS when you look at Salesforce and some of the other SaaS applications that are proliferating throughout the enterprise. So why do we see that customers are implementing a multi-cloud strategy, and then also how can partners capitalize on this? And David, why don't we start with you if you don't mind?
Sure. I think that when this question was posed to me the first time, it was, is it fact or is it fiction? And it's clearly a fact.
Fact, yeah.
The data that I looked at before I came here was that of the roughly $500 billion in technology spend that we'll see by 2021, 90% of that will be multi-cloud or multi-vendor solutions. And the reality is what we're all trying to do is provide the solutions that the customers love and want to renew into perpetuity. That's the idea. So in order to do that, we've got to partner with our peers here on the panel to make that a reality. And I just think from the Microsoft perspective, it's been interesting to see our own evolution in how we treat this. Historically, we've been very focused on building a channel of partners to deliver our solutions in our ecosystem. And we were vehemently protective of the Windows operating system.
Yeah.
And then you've seen over the course of the last 5 years, our relationships with global ISVs, with OEMs, with technology communities, such that they can monetize our platform, our services, our solutions, our devices, and we can do the same on theirs. And this is really exemplified by the relationships that you see with Microsoft and Apple. I mean, the Office apps were the #1 application on the iPhone for an extended period of time. The new relationship with Oracle, the Oracle on Azure scenarios, SAP on Azure. We've got something that I'm very excited about, VMware on Azure, NetApp on Azure. We've got all these relationships that we're now developing because we know that there are these customer experiences that they want to continue to have, like with VMware, for example, but they want to run that into the public cloud and take advantage of some of the advanced workloads that we can provide them there. So it's a reality, and we're doing it for the customers.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, right? You have to look at the broader ecosystem across all of the providers, right? And that's part of what Arrow's doing, is trying to figure out what those complementary solutions are across all of our partners, and then our emerging stack as well, to arm our partners with the knowledge and the skills and the resources to go actually implement this type of a strategy.
Yeah, so one of the things that your team is doing, which I'm sure you're learning about as you're onboarding into this role, is they built an Azure, what we call Azure Plus, pillar of our Microsoft strategy. And it's really about these Azure Plus Oracle scenarios or Azure Plus VMware scenarios. And they're building kind of the sales playbooks, the marketing content, and the execution that they can go and then deliver through partners here to go and deliver that to their customers.
Absolutely. Does anyone else want to take a stab at multi-cloud?
I'll make one
Please.
comment on multi-cloud. Yeah, so having cloud conversations with clients, sometimes they say, "Oh, we're not going to do cloud," or we're not ready for it. Whether they're in the healthcare industry and they're just not ready for it, or they're a small business, or or financial services and they just don't want their data in the public cloud. And then you ask them, "Well, are you using Salesforce? Are you using Workday?" Well, you're multi-cloud.
Exactly.
Because most of the time they say yes to those things. Yeah. And so it doesn't have to be the big Oracle or IBM or Azure or AWS, right, cloud infrastructure, right? There are plenty of applications that your clients don't even realize that are sitting on the cloud sometimes. And so from a multi-cloud standpoint, you don't have to think of it from the large players that are maybe sitting here on the panel. There's many applications that your clients are using today that make them multi-cloud already, which makes the conversation about the larger cloud even easier once they kind of formalize, oh wait, we are already multi-cloud.
That's a great point. Please.
Yeah, and I mean, just to add to that, so as in your position, this multi-cloud thing, I think you can monetize it by looking at being a managed service provider. Because what's happened is, in our brains, I think we created this sort of vision that there's separate clouds, and I put all my stuff in each cloud separately, and they don't talk and it doesn't interact. But with cloud colos like Equinix, basically there's, essentially you can take any cloud and connect it as tightly with as much bandwidth and as low latency as you want. So you can mix and match not just clouds, you can mix and match clouds with on-prem stuff. Let me give you an example. At Oracle, our Exadata platform is kind of the best place to run Oracle. It's very fast, it's very performant. We had a customer that wanted to take everything to AWS, everything, all of the app layer, all of the data layer, or we were going to be gone. Well, they were successful on the app side, but when they tried to run their SQL workloads in AWS's cloud, they just couldn't make it go. AWS couldn't give them the scale. So what they did is they just worked with Equinix. They put their app in AWS, and they bought a bunch of Exadatas. They connected through the network, Equinix network, to our Exadatas. That's where they ran their SQL database workload, and it was a great solution. So my view, and there's going to be many of these kinds of things that come up. Where you're going to be able to tactically deliver a solution and then start to repeat it. As David was saying, that's what I think the big cloud providers are really understanding. It's a multi-cloud world. How do we make that easy for our customers? And you guys should really be a part of that.
Great.
So again, the drivers for the multi-cloud is just that some clouds are better at some things than others. But one of the things I wanted to comment on is I heard Kubernetes multiple times, right? Azure Kubernetes, Google Kubernetes. Kubernetes is not a product. It's a project.
Right.
right? That's an open source project that anyone in this room can go contribute to, right? What Red Hat delivers is a product. So although these clouds like AWS, Azure, all have their Kubernetes offering, they also provide OpenShift offerings as well, right? Azure actually just announced Azure Red Hat OpenShift, which is jointly integrated with Azure CLI, so you can actually run OpenShift commands from the Azure CLI, right? So it's a real integration effort there. And obviously Microsoft gets enterprise probably better than most, right? But it's not just the usual suspects, the hypers, right? We got UK Cloud over in the UK, right? Datacom down in New Zealand. OROC, who services three-letter agencies, running an OpenShift hybrid offering. So, I mean, I just wanted to make the distinguish between a project and an actual product.
Great, thank you. Great. Let's move on. And one of the key topics that came up yesterday in the breakouts was AI and machine learning, and obviously that has a major implication on end users' cloud strategy. So, Clay, from your perspective, how can partners build a practice around kind of the AI and data aspect of cloud?
Yeah, it's a great question because this is why I said in my opening that AI is not magic, because sometimes you think of AI and you think of robots and you think of the Terminator and people taking over the world. So, or more likely, taking over your workforce, right? Replacing workers and replacing, people in your clients and in your own organization. So the way I like to think about it is there's no AI without IA. And so IA meaning information architecture. And so without that, you can't build an AI practice. And so one way to think of it is, 4 rungs of a ladder, right, from an information architecture standpoint, is you got to collect data, right? That's the first thing you got to do. You got to collect data, no matter what cloud, database, no matter where it is, you got to collect the data, right, about your customers, about your clients, about all the things that you're trying to do and trying to accomplish as an organization. And then you've got to take that next step and you got to organize that data. So, right, you hear about GDPR, you heard about that earlier today. Thinking about governance, you think about the organization of that data, and then you move up into that next rung, into the analysis of that data. So not only reporting on that data, but also starting to do some of the data science, some of the machine learning, right? And then that final step is infusing that into your organization and into the applications and the things that you're doing, whether they're whatever hybrid cloud they're sitting on. So you got to collect, organize, analyze, and then infuse that. And a great example of that is Netflix, right? We all hear about Netflix in a lot of ways, but Netflix collects all of your information, right? They collect all the shows that you're watching. Like, the guy sitting in the back there, they know. They know what you're watching. They know you're watching the Great British Baking Show out there.
I thought it was Ozark.
Well, to your point on Ozark, so they collect that data, right? They're organizing that data, right, in their information architecture, right? And then they're doing a lot of this on the cloud. And then they're analyzing that data amongst all the other users, right? Like folks in the room. If you watch this, what else would you like to watch? So then that gentleman in the back may get because you watch the Great British Baking Show, maybe you want to watch Ozark. You're 91% chance that you're going to watch Ozark. And that's machine learning, and that's, advanced analytics that's happening in the background to make recommendations. And if you think about it, that probably is, my wife watches both those shows. Right? But it's not linear. It's not logical that someone would watch a baking show and then they would watch something, darker like Ozark. But those are some of the insights that machine learning AI can provide. Now, it's a very simple example, but we see it in our everyday life, whether it's the shows that we watch, the medical treatment that we're receiving, the cars that we drive, right? AI, machine learning are making an impact. But for you partners in the room, it's kind of simplifying down to that, here's this, ladder to AI, right, from a collect, organize, analyze, infuse, or, the information architecture discussions. You can have some really, really powerful discussions that are relatively simple, right, to understand where they sit in the ladder, right, to know whether or not they're ready or what other things do they need to do to prepare themselves to be ready for AI.
Yeah, I think in one of the key things that is often overlooked because it's grunt work is the cleansing of data, right? So if to your point, you have applications or data that's cross-platform, right? Typically it's going to come in disparate formats. So something as minuscule as how a date table is formatted, whether they're using dashes or slashes, could actually throw the data sample out of whack on the analyze side. So it's kind of interesting how there's so many opportunities within data analytics, but across platform. But when you boil it down, some of the simple things can trip you up, and that could be a potential area that that our partners could really help on the consulting side around driving value in the AI stack. Any other thoughts from the panelists on the AI front?
I was going to say. Yeah, I mean, I've done some work in this area. I think the industry hasn't done well with it. There's been too many tools. They haven't been integrated. They haven't thought as seriously, like to your point, Sean, about the data cleansing. I mean, the bottom line is it's hard to make. It's not a necessarily easy a problem. So my advice to you, unless you're specifically focused on this area, is be humble. Pick a narrow problem where the data is available, where there's a very clear business outcome, and then look at the tools that are available. I could go on and on about Oracle's tools. Microsoft has some excellent one, IBM as well. But my advice is be humble. Find that use case that really has a lot of value add by the business outcome, and be focused.
Great, thank you. All right, coming into the home stretch here. So we touched on kind of the partnership between VMware and Microsoft as it relates to Azure, and I'd love to get both of your perspectives on what that ecosystem looks like, and again how partners can monetize it. So Kyle, why don't you start us off with kind of the VMware perspective and give us a little context around that solution?
Absolutely. So back to a couple of previous conversations, our relationship with Microsoft a few years ago, we tried to do this and we didn't do it well, right? We didn't have an answer that gave our customers what they were looking for. And we're back to that point where Microsoft's kind of changed their tunes, VMware's changed their tunes, as well as I think everybody on the panel, right? We are trying to work together to provide better solutions that do integrate, right? The frenemies discussion, right? Or how you compete with each other, but also complement each other's solution sets. So what we've done with Microsoft and Azure is really run the VMware Cloud Foundation stack, a complete stack of software. Not just vSphere, not just vSAN, not just NSX, not just vRealize, but the whole stack together as a platform. And when we run that and a customer provisions that flavor of Azure, they literally have the same operating environment, consistent platform, consistent infrastructure, consistent operations, their same people, processes, and tools they use today in their own data center, or maybe even on another cloud, they can use with their Microsoft Azure VMware deployments now. And that's a huge opportunity to make things simple for a customer and still get them to the public cloud, get them to what they like about Azure, and help them deploy and manage those applications as they see fit based upon whatever their requirements are. So I'll let you add on to that.
Yeah, so very well said, first of all. So this is something that we're very excited about at Microsoft. We've been having conversations with our leadership team about a VMware on Azure solution for about 2 years in conjunction with Arrow's leadership team. And when we look at Arrow's VMware practice, Arrow is accountable for about 14% of VMware's all-up revenue. And so the old Microsoft and me got a little greedy when I started seeing the vSphere 5.5 end of support and 50% of your customers are on that. I looked at that as hey, let's migrate that business to Azure. And Arrow, I think, showed a lot of leadership in saying, hey, look, let's find a way to have a solution that is beneficial to all parties, that helps VMware, that helps Microsoft, that helps the line of business teams within Arrow, the VMware team, the cloud solution team, and then ultimately benefits the customer who is familiar with that solution, but then wants to take advantage of some of the stuff in the cloud. So it's very exciting for us. The Arrow team, VMware team worked with our engineering teams, the One Commercial Partner Group, and we've now got this viable first-party VMware on Azure solution that's available in a couple regions in the U.S. right now. I saw the rollout schedule of it a couple weeks ago. We've got a very aggressive rollout for the rest of the world over the course of the next couple of months. And so for those of you in the audience here, if any of you are interested in learning more about this, please reach out to Sean, myself, to John Austin in the back. We're doing some workshops with the Arrow team in the coming weeks to skill them up on the solution, and then we would love to do more with the folks in the room here that are interested in building that practice as well.
Great. All right. Well, we're on schedule. So I just want to thank our panel for their investment in the ATS Summit. So thank all of you for coming out. It's been a pleasure. For everyone in the audience, I hope you were able to get a couple actionable items that you can go back and take to the field and start monetizing some of these cloud solutions. I'll be around all day today and in the summit this afternoon. I know some of these gentlemen will be as well. But just want to thank everybody for the time and thank you for your insights. Have a great day. Thanks, everybody.